All right, guys, what's going on? So I'm about to jump on a call with my new coach, Steve, and we're going to go over my training program for the ultra marathon that's coming up in May. So come and join Steve and I to learn what I'm doing for the next couple months and how we're going to tackle Ironman training and ultra marathon training combined together. Because right after that, June, I have 70.3 Mont Tremblant.
Let's dive on in. I won't use much of your time. Can you introduce yourself? What do you do? How you got here? And why you became a coach?
Yeah, my name's Steve Grochot. I am a firefighter, and for the last about year or so, I've been doing endurance run coaching. I have a company called Trailblazer Run Coaching. Basically, my backstory with running is I kind of was involved with, I've been an athlete my whole life. I've been playing hockey, I've been playing football, and everything's kind of been like sprint-based sports. And then I finally got into actually a triathlon, a sprint tri though, nothing like you're doing. And basically, I couldn't figure it out because everything I was used to in my mind was always sprint based. So I thought I always had to be going as hard as I can all the time. And so finally, I joined the running room, and they used to offer run clinics, and I kind of jumped on board with them and bounced around for a bit. Basically, I had a hard time sticking to the road. Eventually, I came across trail running, and I kind of just fell in love with it. Shortly after that, I signed up for my first trail race. That was back when Mech had a run series.
Okay, yep.
It went really well. I really enjoyed it. And I tried to I registered for a 50K, which would have been my first ultra at the time. And then COVID hit, that shut everything down. So I had a group of friends from the run community that I had kind of established myself in. And I decided I was still going to go ahead with the 50K, but I was going to kind of do it as like my own backyard ultra type of thing. So I had like a 10K route that I would run regularly. I was going to do that 5 times, and I was going to be my backyard ultra through COVID, which a lot of people were doing at the time. And it was awesome. Everybody came out, they supported me, they helped me out, they were cheering me on, and it was awesome. And that in a nutshell, not even being at a race, an organized race, kind of is exactly what trail running is in a nutshell. It's people helping other people. It's not cutthroat. It's everybody's trying to build you up, and it's just a totally different vibe. And I fell in love. And I said I would never do it again. Yeah. And then, 2 days later, I'm starting to feel a little bit better about it. And I'm on my computer and I'm looking for the next race. And before long, I just can't stop thinking about anything else. And so I get into, I go down the rabbit hole of YouTube like a lot of us do. And, I'm constantly searching and researching and figuring out, it went okay, it didn't go great. I need to improve my training. So my first step was to acquire a coach because I knew I wanted to build up to the next distance and go further. So I hired my own coach, and she was fantastic. Did really good work with her. But working with her made me appreciate the coaching aspect of it. And being that I was so involved in trying to teach myself as much as I can about endurance running and ultra running, I decided I was going to go ahead and get my training certificate myself. So I got my certificate from USCA, and kind of the rest is history. Like it's just a passion that I really, really enjoy. And truthfully, I love going to races, even when I'm not running. I love going to see the athletes that I'm coaching and help them by crewing them or handing them a gel when they need it or giving them advice or just being able to be there and kind of pick them up, when they're having a low moment. And just watching them build from wherever they're at to whatever audacious goals they have. It's such a rewarding experience. It's been a lot of fun. Sorry,
That's
it's kind of
amazing,
long-winded, but yeah.
No, it's great. I mean, you nailed all the questions, and it did paint a big picture of your passion for the sport. And word for word, dude, like I agree with you. The community is the most attractive thing for me. It's very similar to the gravel bike community where it's like everybody just wants to help each other out, like jump on my wheel or like here's a gel,
Yeah,
and it's just
exactly.
like you just want to see the person beside you succeed just as much as you are, because at the end of the day, and because the stretch of that race is so long, it's kind of nice having somebody to push you. You kind of have that leapfrog experience with them to get to that finish line, or even just like the conversations that you share with somebody to get to that finish line just makes the day go by much quicker.
Yep.
And you just saying you enjoy being at the races without even racing, that's something that I need to start to work on, honestly, because even though I don't have athletes that I'm coaching, I still love seeing my friends out there killing it and just doing their best. And if me being there and saying a couple words or giving them some food or running beside them makes their day just a little bit easier, dude, I hear you. It fills the cup. It's amazing.
You know what? It doesn't even have to be, I mean, just being there and being present in the community is awesome in itself. But if you haven't done it yet, like getting the opportunity to go to a race and work at an aid station or volunteer in some capacity, it's such a rewarding experience. And everybody who comes through that aid station or everybody who you interact with as a volunteer, everybody is so appreciative of you being there and volunteering your time. And, you're helping out, a local race director, and they appreciate that. And it's a circle, right? And I find the more that you can get involved in the community and the more, well-rounded you are in that community, it benefits everybody. And yeah, it's a great experience.
I was thinking we go over the big picture of what you would, or the goal that you're trying to achieve with me up until May. And then also if you want to talk a bit about how you're mixing it in with my triathlon program as well.
So for you in particular, it's kind of a unique situation for me because you'll be the first triathlete that I've worked with. So I know that you're already a well-established athlete and you already have a pretty high volume. So last time we spoke, you mentioned you were upwards of like 14 hours a week between your running, your cycling, and your time in the pool. So for me, it's really about making sure that we're not overloading you too much and managing your stress throughout all three of those aspects. But on that same note, we got to make sure that you're building properly and hitting the certain workouts to allow for that adaptive process so that we can hit those benchmarks through each of the phases that we're going to go through. And basically, we're going to kind of build backwards from your goal race, which in this case is Sulphur Springs 100K in May. And we're going to kind of build backwards from there to make sure that we can get you to that goal. You also have like a tune-up race. So you have around the bay, the 30K.
Yep.
So that'll be a good way to like just kind of use that first phase of training, which is typically going to be like a VO2 max phase for you because you're doing 100K long distance race. We want to go from least specific to most specific. So the least specific in this case is going to be hard, shorter VO2 max type efforts. And as we get closer to your 100K race, that's when we want to be hitting those like longer endurance type efforts. And then in between, we'll hit something in the middle ground. That's more like lactate threshold, tempo type work. So it's kind of an evolution to get to that point. And that's kind of the goal. And then beyond that, we might be building something even bigger. Who knows?
We might be, yeah. And that's another question. Like, yeah, if you're open to it, jump on board with me, help me out with the 100-miler. So yeah, I just, you guys definitely opened up that door and I felt like I couldn't resist. And I slept on it for 2 days thinking about it. And, I just kept checking the registration like site there, and there was like 32 spots left, and then it went to 29, and then it went to 28, and I was like, you know what, I feel like I'm already doing so much volume building up to the 100K that I give myself so much like time in between the 100K and the 100-miler. I think there's like a 4-month window in between to continue building up mileage, and like looking at the 100K being like, okay, how did I do on that day? What can I take from it? And then just like add an extra 60K for the 100 mile. So I feel confident, and especially around really, just the fact that like, I am training so much.
Yeah. And it's just about getting your body used to that continuous volume, right? And when I did my first set of like serious ultras, when I did my first 100K, my first 100-miler, it was very similar to the layout that you have. So my first 100K was in it would have been in June, and that would have been at World's End in Pennsylvania. And then my first 100 miler would have been Halley, which is September. So it's about
Pretty
a month
similar.
shorter, but very, very close, right?
Yeah.
So it still allows you to recover from your 100K, which is going to be super important. But then at the same time, you can continue to build before you taper for Halley. So it kind of gives you that perfect amount of time in between. It's definitely doable. And yeah, I'm excited to get you there.
100%, dude. 100%. All right. So let's you open to digging a little bit deeper into the structure of the program over the next couple months. So what I mean by that is like, how are we going to increase the duration, and what is the intensity going to look like moving forward into I guess February?
Because you're already like a well-trained athlete, we kind of were able to bypass that like base building phase. You didn't really have to go through that. You'll be going into, or you're in right now, like a VO2 max state phase. So we're hitting like the high intensity intervals where we're trying to get positive effect on your VO2 max. So that's going to go on for a couple weeks. Now, where it's not always going to be a 3 week, a 3 week build and a deload. It's gonna vary depending on how you're responding to the training, how things are going, making sure you're not getting injured, and we ought to manage that with all your other training. So right now, because that intensity is so high, the rest of the training throughout your week is going to be fairly easy, with the exception of your long run. We're still going to continue to build your long run, which is going to be a staple regardless of what phase we're at throughout your training. Once we get out of this phase, we're going to go into like a lactate threshold phase where your intensity is going to get slightly lower, but your duration at intensity is going to get long.
Okay.
So we'll be transitioning to that. And then at some point in time, I don't want to put you on the spot here, but we're going to have to discuss maybe cutting back some of your time in other aspects of your training to allow for higher run volume. As we get closer to your endurance phase, right? It's just going to be about time on feet. And as we get closer to that endurance phase, we're going to have more and more time on feet. And that's when we'll be looking at getting into things like long back-to-back days.
Okay.
So you'll be running, typically your longest day will be on the Saturday, and then you'll run a second long run of a shorter distance on the Sunday type of thing.
Okay.
Typically you'll have a recovery day on the Monday, and then you'll get back to work again on Tuesday, Wednesday.
Okay, cool. So something new that you've introduced to me, Steve, and I'm actually really loving. I think it's just because it's slowing me down and like it's not as high impact as, somebody from the outside would be watching me go through, but the incline walks. I know I've been raving about them, but I've been loving them. Now, are those going to increase as well, or are we staying at basically same duration? So right now, the 30 minutes, but are you looking for like an increase in speed to like eventually be like a slow trot at that incline?
The reason I liked you doing that in particular is because your overall volume is high, and there is little risk of overdoing it by adding that workout into your routine, but there's high reward by adding it. As we continue to add volume, that can be a workout that can kind of be like plotted in anywhere, as it doesn't really take anything away from your training, but it will only add to it. And it's gonna, as you know, and as most people know who are doing trail running, the majority of the time we're not running those hills, right? We're power hiking them, and we're getting up them, saving some energy, and then we're running once we get to it. So it's very specific as well to what the task is. It's training those legs to hike and hike fast up those hills for extended durations. So it's not something that will necessarily add into the equation more, but will likely continue to add it in. But there might become a point where you need to add more volume to your training, where it may have to cut out at the expense of, if you need to get in a swim or a bike or something. Okay. You just need to kind of balance everything out and make sure that we're not overdoing one aspect over the other, and then putting you in a position where you're overtrained or, too fatigued to get out the next day. So just a bit of a balancing act.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love the guidance of it all. I never used to have a coach with any of the racing that I did in the past. Like it's only been the past like 3 years that I've started to really lean into a coach. And, I'm like a sponge. Like my background was a personal trainer, so I was constantly learning. And it's been a lot of fun so far. just getting to run with you, and then also having you train me and show me just a different path. You know, every training program from a coach is a completely different path, and it's a different experience.
And the other thing about that too, it's a good point you made, is that like different coaches have different paths, and there's not necessarily a right and a wrong path. There's different ways to skin a cat. It's just about being flexible as a coach with your athlete, because, you know, I have numerous athletes and none are identical. And so it's about learning about your athlete and what makes them tick and how to motivate them and make sure that you're doing workouts that cater to what they need. And, you know, there's not like a cookie cutter approach that just works for everybody. That's not how it works, right? Otherwise, you know, download any 50K training plan off the line and do it. But it's not going to be, you know, that's not going to make everybody successful in the end, because there's so many other variables, like you getting sick last week. You know, you have to account for that in your training, and we adjusted your deload week based off of that. And then you recovered, and then we continued to progress through things. So you got to be flexible through the process.
100%.
Yeah.
Awesome, Steve. Dude, thank you so much for your time. Where can people find you if they want to connect or get coaching from you?
So on Instagram, it's Trailblazer Run Coaching. Our website, it's trailblazerruncoaching.com. Basically all the information you need, and there's an athlete intake form. There's no obligation. You can fill that out. Just it sends me a few very simple questions and answers, and then we can kind of just get a conversation going from there and see what your goals are and see if we're able to help you and go from there. And I do want to give a shout out to the other coach with Trailblazer, Jeff Gamble. He works with Trailblazer as well. Great coach, and he's going to help some people do some big goals this year. So it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, and he's got quite the resume as well, man. I'm impressed by you guys. You don't know, and you don't know what you don't know, right? Like once I started talking to you and Jeff, I was like, yo, you guys have so much. Like, to me, this is like such a big deal. I'm like, yo, it's 3 numbers, right? Like it's triple digits. Like this shit is bananas. But you guys are like, yeah, you know, I've done a couple 100-milers, like no big deal. So I love your humbleness.
It's never easy though, man.
No. And I that's what I love though, is like, I want that mental experience that you guys have gone through, you know, like a lot of people are like, I want to just complete it. I want that mental, I want that dark moment. I want to be able to conquer those inner demons. And, you know, the thing is too, like, I'm not afraid to be by myself for a long duration of time. So it's like, how much can I really, really lean into being by myself?
I'll tell you something. So when I ran Halley 100-miler my first time, I was by myself from about 70K until the end.
Whoa. That's what, 12 hours? 15 hours?
There was like, I saw people in aid stations and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
But the field was spread so thin, and then there's, you know, the people that ended up dropping and stuff like that. So I didn't see a single person on the race course all through the night, all through the next morning until the finish line.
Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, you're gonna be there. You're gonna have those moments. There's gonna be low points. There's gonna be high points.
Yeah.
The key thing is to try and stay level. You're
100%.
out there. You're basically competing in an eating contest at an endurance event where you're trying to problem solve whatever goes wrong. And the easier you're able to adjust to whatever's happening, take in nutrition, you know, make sure you get enough water, make sure you get enough electrolytes. You know, if you have a little blister, take care of that blister. If you got a stone, take care of it now. Don't wait till you get to the aid station. If you can problem solve all these things, you'll be successful.